Do you think I'd be a good juror?
No.
Okay. I'm Erin.
I'm Tom.
This is Baby's First Watch List, a podcast you think is at least okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you're this far
'Cause
in,
you're listening.
even if you've only caught a couple.
So thanks. I have to get right to it because I wrote so much down. I was doing a project.
Well, this movie's like 60, almost 70 years old, right?
It's just all the people.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, there's a lot about it because of how old it is.
Right. That is true. Today we're covering the 1957 legal drama. They called it American legal drama. 12.
It is all of those things.
Yeah. 12 Angry Men. This movie is a watch in high school social studies classic, even though I have never seen it before. I
watched it in something. I don't remember what.
Yeah. As a teacher, I can definitely see how this would be an excellent one to show in school. Number one, appropriate. There's no issues with even language or anything like that.
Even in the social issues that it tackles are not controversial social issues for the most part.
Right. It's also short, so you can get it in two class
periods.
periods.
Yeah.
And it's genuinely really good and brings up a lot of questions, and you could have debates, and it's great for if you teach stuff involving American legal systems and all that. So pretty good.
Yeah.
It was directed by Sidney Lumet, who is not Lumet.
Cindy Lou who?
Cindy Lou Who. The 5-time Oscar nominee, 4 for Best Director for 12 Angry Men.
His debut.
Which was his directorial debut. Dog Day Afternoon, which for many years I said was my favorite movie. Network, and The Verdict. And he has one Oscar nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay for 1981's Prince of the City.
Okay.
12 Angry Men was actually his directorial debut. He had a few wives, and one of them was Gloria Vanderbilt. But he was the husband before the husband who she had Anderson Cooper with.
Okay.
So I was like, did Anderson Cooper
Is that
have
a
Sidney
word
Lumet?
for? Is there a word for because of the
the
next husband would be a stepdad,
not quite stepdad.
yeah.
And his daughter Jenny wrote the excellent movie Rachel Getting Married.
She was in this movie. Not this movie. She was in the other movie that I watched.
Oh, I was like,
there's no women in this movie.
Wow.
There's no women in this movie. She probably wasn't born yet.
Well, Rachel Getting Married rocked.
Yeah.
So good for her. And she also is very involved with Star Trek stuff.
Okay.
Creating Star Trek stuff and whatever. 12 Angry Men was adapted. Oh, and she's also related to Lena Horne.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. I think that was her grandma.
Mm-hmm.
12 Angry Men was adapted from the teleplay written by Reginald Rose, who is credited for the screenplay as well.
It's a great name.
I literally was going to ask, do you like the name Reginald?
Reginald Rose is a great name.
Reginald Rose.
Maybe we could do that for a first and middle name.
Reggie Rose. That's kind of slaps, I gotta say. Reg Rose.
I don't think that's gonna work.
I didn't know what a teleplay was, so I looked it up.
It's like a TV movie.
Yeah, it's like a TV movie, but it's this one especially was meant sort of as a play itself.
Well, remember, TV wasn't what it is now.
Right.
They were still figuring out what the medium was. So
right,
that makes sense.
Cinematographer Boris Kaufman was an Oscar winner for his first big movie that he shot on the waterfront.
Oh, wow.
He was nominated for another Elie Kazan movie too, but I don't remember what that was. The music was by Kenyon Hopkins, who was also known as a big jazz composer, which I didn't really remember the music.
I didn't find the score to be a big part of the movie.
One way or the other.
Usually I can track that.
I know. I was what was that? But he didn't really he did movies and he did TV and he did stage and stuff, but he was mostly known as a jazz composer. The cast is secretly stacked. You look at these people's names and you're like, I don't know any of these people, but you do actually. So everyone knows that the big star is Henry Fonda, right? Who is now probably known as Jane Fonda's dad.
Probably to people contemporarily.
That's how I if you said who's Henry Fonda, I would say that's Jane.
What about Peter Fonda?
Who is? Yeah, who's Peter Fonda?
He's another Fonda.
Is Uncle?
Older. I probably uncle, yeah. I'm not 100%.
Wait, is he related to Henry?
I think so.
What's his name again? Peter?
Oh, no. He's Jane Fonda's brother.
Oh, so he's younger.
Younger brother.
Okay, that's easy
They
then.
were both both children of Henry Fonda.
Very easy to remember then.
Yes.
That's pretty crazy.
He wrote Easy Rider.
Oh, cool. Did you know that Henry Fonda was born in Nebraska?
No.
Yeah. I feel like no one's from Nebraska.
Lincoln.
Oh, yeah. Wait, no, he's from Illinois.
Oh, yeah. But there's Lincoln, Nebraska.
I was like, yeah.
Yeah, that would have just went through
and anyway, yeah, he was a huge star back in the day. He was nominated for 3 Oscars. He ended up winning for On Golden Pond in the 80s. So like he won like for his, it was like, oh, we got to give him it.
Yeah.
And he also had an honorary one before then.
You want to hear some famous Nebraskans?
Yeah.
Warren Buffett.
Oh, yeah. I get him confused with good old Jimmy.
Nick Nolte.
Oh, he's famous.
Malcolm X.
Oh.
L. Ron Hubbard.
Oh.
Gerald Ford.
Ah.
Fred Astaire. Gabrielle Union.
That's a lot of famous people from
a decent
from
amount of fame. Connor Oberst as well.
Oh, I know him.
And Alexander Payne. Well, it makes sense.
Oh, right.
Because he did the movie Nebraska.
Yeah. Oh, and that's a great movie. Great movie. Great album. A great Henry Fonda. And that is our Nebraska segment.
Yes, for this episode.
So Henry Fonda also has a Grammy. He has a Tony. And although he doesn't have an EGOT, he was nominated for 3 Emmys.
He's got a got.
He's got. So here's some of the other people. I didn't list all of them, but like I listed everyone who had like something major, and I'm like, that's like most of them. So
everyone had a moment.
Sounds kind of I mean like in their careers.
Oh.
So it sounds kind of mean because I leave out like 3 people, but like it's just because
we got to cut it for time, people.
Exactly. So juror number 1 was
Martin Balsam.
Martin Balsam. Is he the head juror? What's his name?
The foreman.
The foreman.
Yeah.
He has an Oscar. He has
Yes.
a Tony, and he's known for his roles in Psycho, Breakfast at Tiffany's, All the President's Men, and all kinds of other stuff.
Also,
too.
Ombre, starring Paul Newman.
He's a very when you see him, you're like, yeah.
You knew him immediately. I was like, I know this guy's in this movie. I pointed him out to you, and you were like, oh, I've seen that guy before.
Yep.
And then I was like, he was in Psycho, and you were like, oh yeah, that's where I know him from.
Exactly.
You knew him immediately.
Yep. Juror number 2, John Fiedler. He was the voice of Piglet.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he was also in a billion things, including he had like not a main part in A Raisin in the Sun, but in the movie, but a kind of, it's not even a pivotal part, but it's a part where like he's the perfect person to play it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good movie. That's a really good play. You should read. Have you ever read it?
Haven't.
You should
We
read
have
it.
it. It's in this room somewhere.
Gorgeous play.
I think.
Gorgeous movie. It's just great. Number 3 was Lee J. Cobb.
Yeah.
He was the original Willie Loman in the play Death of a Salesman that Elie Kazan directed. And so I'm like, wow. Do you know I read Death of a Salesman twice in high school?
I read it once.
Why? Like, why did I have to read it in both 10th and 12th grade?
We read it in 12th.
I was like, okay.
Did the curriculum change between 10th and 12th grade? So they like moved it around?
No. Do you know what I think it was? I was in...
The 12th grade teacher liked it.
That is exactly
got to teach whatever
what
they
happened.
want.
Yep. Because it was AP, so she was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna do whatever I want."
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what happened. That's also why we read Ayn Rand.
Yeah.
Oh, that was tragic. So Lee J. Cobb has 2 Oscar nominations, a Grammy nomination, and 3 Emmy nominations.
These people are wild.
I'm like, my guy. Number 5, Jack Klugman. He has 10 Emmy nominations and 3 wins. 2 of them were from The Odd Couple. He was like one of the main guys in The Odd Couple. I was like, that's a famous show. Number 7, Jack Warden is twice nominated, and he won an Emmy for the classic TV movie Brian Song.
Yeah.
He played the coach. Because I was like, he's not Brian. That's James Caan.
Yes.
He was the coach. And then number 10, Ed Begley.
Known for being Ed Begley Jr.'s
I
dad.
said he not only has an Oscar, but he also has a famous son.
Yeah.
Ed Begley Jr., who is literally in everything.
Who also, I feel like, in today's day and age, Ed Begley Sr. is just known for being Ed Begley Jr.'s dad.
Yeah, 100%. That's how I know him.
Not that Ed Begley Jr. is as famous as Jane Fonda, but you know what I mean.
No, Ed Begley Jr. on Wikipedia, it was like Ed Begley, father of actor and environmental activist Ed Begley Jr. I was like, oh, okay, Ed Begley Jr.
Yeah, he has a whole section on his Wikipedia page.
Did not know that. Yeah.
Good for him.
He pops up in like every show, every movie. Like, it's just like, why is Ed Begley Jr. here? Like, he's
and then it's
everywhere.
like, it'll be like the beginning credits of the episode, and it'll be like guest starring Ed Begley Jr.
And you're like, of course.
Yeah, naturally.
So 12 Angry Men was shot only over the course of 3 weeks. And it only cost $337,000.
All except for 3 minutes is in the jury room, and the other 3 minutes is like in the bathroom.
Wild. It was considered a commercial disappointment initially, especially here in the United States. It did a little bit better abroad, and it netted $2 million. Many blamed it on the fact that it was in black and white, and so like at that time, people were like, "No, we want to see movies in color."
By the time the 50s rolled around, late 50s.
And they're like, "Okay, but like, where's the fun stuff?" And then it's like, okay, well, but this is good. And so eventually it kind of found its audience.
Yeah.
I think it had to be like it was released on TV.
It was the Film Bros.
And
the 1957 Film Bros.
People were like, yo, CBS is slapping right now. It was a critical success, however. Not that they were checking back then, but it's currently 100% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. It was nominated for 3 Oscars. Because I saw, okay, so I was like, I'm confused. Is Wikipedia wrong? Because it was like Henry Fonda nominated for 12 Angry Men. And then I looked and it was like 3 Oscars and none of them were for acting, but he was a producer.
Yeah, he was.
So he was
This was the only movie he ever produced.
Yeah, he was like, I'm not doing that again. Which I was like, oh.
He also deferred his salary. So he didn't get paid at the time. He was supposed to get paid later. I don't know if he ever got paid.
Wow, that's interesting.
He probably ended up making enough money through
I feel like he did
later
okay.
on when
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even from this movie,
with residuals,
I would
and stuff?
assume when stuff happened later on, when it got bigger,
probably
that he did okay from it.
So it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Adapted Screenplay. It did not win any of them. Wait, what won? Do you
Bridge
know?
on the River Kwai, I think.
Oh, okay. Is it a war movie?
Bridge on the River Kwai?
Yeah.
I feel like I should probably know that because it's such a mega famous movie. Epic war film.
Bridge of Spies. Bridges of Madison County.
It's a World War II movie.
Bridge on River Kwai. If you want to be nominated for Oscars, make your movie on a bridge.
Yeah. 21 Bridges. Remember that movie? Where like they all had like bombs on them, and it was
Bridge to Terabithia.
It was like John David Washington or something like that. No, so Chadwick Boseman and Taylor Kitsch and J.K. Simmons and Keith David.
That's kind of slaps.
Yeah.
Taylor Kitsch. Wow. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Big star.
Okay, Henry Fonda and Lee J. Cobb were nominated for Golden Globes alongside of Best Picture and Director, but nobody won any of those.
Lee J. Cobb was awesome in this movie.
He was so good. He just was so sad at the end.
Yeah.
Spoilers. As if like you could really like the movie's not really a spoilery movie.
No.
Which is also I think a good thing for if you're showing movies in class. Because do you know what makes me mad is when like a class leaves and you hear in the hallway, they're like, "Oh, what did we do today?" And then they tell them, and it's like, "Shh, just don't give it away." Even if it's just like, "Oh, we're just writing whatever," and I'm like, "Shh, like let them come in," because then they'll be like, do we have to do anything today?"
Right.
And with this, it would be like, ew, we're watching a black and white movie. That's exactly what it would be, actually. So there have been many adaptations, parodies, and influences that have stemmed from this movie, including a William Friedkin directed television movie adaptation.
R.I.P. William Friedkin. He died like a week
ago.
4 days ago.
Yeah. So that also had a pretty stacked cast, but I didn't look them up because I was so tired.
Jack Lemmon, I think, was the Henry Fonda role.
He must have been old, though.
He was old.
Yeah.
That was after Grumpy Old Men.
Tom, I think. Wow, yeah, you're right. Wow, a lot of men movies for him at the end there.
Yeah. All right, I got the cast right here.
Oh, and also Jack Lemmon has like the most iconic gravestone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it says Jack Lemmon in.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Yeah, so it's got Courtney B. Vance, Ossie Davis, George C. Scott plays the Lee J. Cobb role. James Gandolfini, Tony Danza, Jack Lemmon.
Tony Danza's so random.
Tony Danza plays the baseball guy,
That's
which
so
is perfect.
funny.
And Edward James Olmos, McKelty Williamson, yeah, and some other people. It's a
And who's
crazy
the judge?
cast. Mary McDonnell.
Yep. Okay.
Sure is.
I'm just gonna do my NJ connection and my weird almost NJ connection right now.
Okay.
Because it's not exciting.
There were a bunch, I thought.
There are a bunch,
Oh,
but
okay.
they're not. It's like they died
They were
here.
born there.
They
Yeah,
died here.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's my get connected for free. My New Jersey connections. So Martin Balsam, aka.
I'm glad you went with Martin Balsam.
Yeah. Well, there's a ton of NJ
Yeah.
connections. I went through a bunch. He's buried in New Jersey.
Yes.
That's sad.
We got to go to his grave.
Yeah, do we? That's weird. Actually, I'm going to skip him because I have a whole thing on him. The next guy. Okay, Jack Warden. He was born in Newark, New Jersey, but then he became like a boxer where he moved to like Kansas or something and became a boxer. I was like, okay. And then the musician Kenyon Hopkins, he died in Princeton, but he lived on a farm right outside of Allentown, New Jersey, for almost 30 years.
Wow.
And that's, we know where that is.
Yeah.
And, okay, the last one is John Fiedler, a.k.a.
Juror number 2.
Piglet. He died in New Jersey. This is, like, so depressing. But I didn't know this. He lived at that point when he died at the Lillian Booth Actors Home, which is in Englewood, New Jersey. It is a retirement home for entertainers.
What?
So, okay, I read, and then I looked
We
it up.
gotta go.
I read a whole article.
Who's there now?
It's like, it's kind of like a step away
No, I know.
from famous.
I know.
So I read a whole article on it from 2017. I think it was like the New York Post or something. And it was really interesting. So if you are like kind of in the entertainment industry, or your spouses or your kids are, you can stay there. You still have to be like approved. You still have to have your insurance. It's like that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
it's like you have to have a connection to Hollywood or Broadway.
Hollywood connection.
Hollywood connection. And so, like Billy Porter's mom,
Okay.
at the time of the articles being published, lived there. And there was like this one guy who owned a club in New York City where for 20 years, and it's where like Bruce Springsteen went before he got his big break, Dolly Parton, the American Pie guy, like
Don
all
McLean.
these, yeah, Don McLean, like all these people performed there. And then NYU apparently like encroached on their campus, and they were like, yeah, we're gonna take over. And then he was like, no. And then Bruce Springsteen was like, oh, I'll give you $100,000. And they were like, no. So it was like, okay. So him and his wife live there, but they live on different floors because she had it's a whole thing.
Okay.
And so
I'm glad that you were able to delve deep into this.
She lived there first, and then like he was like, yeah, I'll move there. And so, but she has a roommate. And then
Okay.
he just lives on a different floor because she needs 24/7 care,
Okay.
and he doesn't.
Now you bring it back, and now it's like this depressing thing.
They're happy. And it was actually kind of depressing because Billy Porter was like interviewed. He was like, no one wants to live in a retirement home,
for
but
sure.
like he said, I see her more now than I have in 25 years because him and his sister live in New York now, which is
Okay.
right across the river.
Yeah.
And so like over the years,
You said it's in Englewood?
yeah, Katharine Hepburn visited, like James Earl Jones. I think one of his relatives lived there. Like you see all these celebrities. I don't know if anymore,
Right.
Because but it's pretty cool because all the people that were interviewed have like brushes with fame. One of them,
it's like the Frankie Jonas show.
yeah, it's claim to fame.
Claim to fame.
It would be like claim to fame mixed with The Golden Bachelor.
Yes.
Yes.
Are they both on ABC?
Yeah, they are.
All right, ABC needs to sponsor us. Disney, call us.
There is a short form documentary that was nominated for the Oscars about this place called Curtain Call.
Cool.
So I do want to watch Curtain Call because that sounds cool.
Yeah.
So that's where John Fiedler lived at towards the end of his life.
That's our New Jersey connection.
And then I have an almost New Jersey connection.
What was it, like Bucks County?
Philadelphia.
Okay.
I said
a lot of people were Philly based.
Okay, so I was looking at Wikipedia, and every time I clicked on it, it was like born in Philadelphia. I'm like,
Lumet was
what?
born there, I know.
So, I said Sidney Lumet was born in Philadelphia.
He grew up in Manhattan, though, I think.
Right. I mean, most of these people were just born in Philly. I'm like, what, was there a good hospital there or something?
Yeah.
And I guess he likes his actors to be from Philly because 3 of the jurors and the judge were all played by actors who were born in the city of brotherly love.
There we go.
So
almost New Jersey.
My almost New Jersey. And it truly is almost New Jersey.
Philly's closer to us than Inglewood is, so.
Philly is very close. We could, if we really book it and there's no traffic, we get there in 30 minutes. Yeah. I don't know about 30, but we would try.
We'll just say 30.
So that's what I have on 12 Angry Men. I bet you now want to look up the Lillian Booth Home for Actors. Also, Lillian Booth was not an entertainer at all.
Good.
She just was this rich lady who donated a ton of stuff to charity, and she just gave $2 million when she died.
There you go.
They're like, all right.
Name it after her. Put her name on the building.
And the reviews are pretty good.
For the place?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Good to know that they're not
taking advantage of people. Yeah.
Okay. Before I do the plot summary, I want to switch taglines up top just so we can sort of get what they were marketing.
It's kind of weird because taglines from the 50s are weird.
The ones for
12 men are in this room. Will they come out with a consensus?
Okay.
It's okay. Why are you giving me the whole
I've got
synopsis?
3 of them. 1. So we're going to say, do you think these accurately describe the movie? The image that this conjures, is that what the movie is?
Okay.
Number 1, it explodes like 12 sticks of dynamite. No, not at all. Number 2, life is in their hands, death is on their minds.
No.
I think it does. I think that's pretty much the movie. The whole movie is about human death and human life.
Okay.
Number 3, they have 12 scraps of paper, 12 chances to kill.
No. That's stupid.
That's the 3 I got.
These are not good.
These are not good. I actually like them in a vacuum, but they don't describe the movie.
No. Second one's the closest, but it's death is on their mind. It's no, the one guy just wants to watch the Orioles game.
Yeah, Yankees.
So
he wants to go to the Yankee game.
I wants to go to the Yankee game. So no, that's not what's really.
And then he gets mad when it starts raining.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go with the plot summary. It's not bad. There's not a whole lot. I mean, a lot of it is sort of the way that it happens. So, all right. In the overheated jury room of the New York County Courthouse, a jury prepares to deliberate the case of an impoverished 18-year-old accused of stabbing his abusive father to death. The judge instructs them that if there is any reasonable doubt, the jurors are to return a verdict of not guilty. If found guilty, the defendant will receive a mandatory death sentence through the electric chair.
Is it New York still death penalty or no?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I'm pretty sure no. The verdict must be unanimous. At first, the case seems clear. A neighbor testified to witnessing the defendant stab his father from her window through the windows of a passing elevated train, or L train. Another neighbor testified that he heard the defendant threaten to kill his father and the father's body hit the ground. Then, as he ran to his door, saw the defendant running down the stairs. The boy has a violent past. He had recently purchased a switchblade of the same type that was found, wiped of fingerprints, at the murder scene, but claimed he lost it. In a preliminary vote, all jurors vote guilty except for Juror 8, played by Henry Fonda, who believes that there should be some discussion before the verdict is made. He basically says, there's a guy's life in our hands. If, how can we come in here and do this in 5 minutes? Because what if we're wrong? So we should at least talk about it. And half of them are like, no, get out. No, it's open and shut. And the guy with the hat one's like, I want to go see the baseball game. And he makes 10 baseball references. Okay. With his Juror 8's first few arguments seemingly failing to convince any of the other jurors, he suggests a secret ballot from which he will abstain. If all the other jurors still vote guilty, he will change his vote to guilty. The ballot reveals one not guilty vote, the second to last vote. Juror 9, an older man, reveals that he changed his vote. He respects Juror 8's motives and agrees that there should be more discussion. Juror 8 argues that the noise of the passing train would have obscured everything the second witness claimed to have overheard. Because it's so loud, how could he have heard the yelling and the exact words and all that? That makes Juror 5 change his vote and Juror 11 as well. Jurors 5, 6, and 8 further question the second witness's story. After looking at a diagram of the witness's apartment and conducting an experiment where, Henry Fonda walks slowly from one end of the room to the other because that witness had a limp and they wanted to match up how long it took, the jurors determined that it is impossible the disabled witness could have made it to the door in time. Juror number 3, played by Lee J. Cobb, infuriated, argues, and tries to attack juror number 8. Jurors 2 and 6 change their votes, and the jury is now evenly split at 6-6. Juror number 4 doubts the defendant's alibi based on the boy's inability to recall specific details, like what movie he went to see and what stars were in those movies. Juror 8 tests Juror 4's own memory to make a point, basically saying, you don't remember everything either. You don't remember what you did on Monday, and he kind of doesn't. Jurors 2 and 5 point out the unlikelihood the boy made a stab wound angled downwards as he was shorter than his father. Juror 7 changes his vote out of impatience. Juror 7's the baseball guy. Changes his vote out of impatience rather than conviction.
That's like me.
Angering Juror 11.
Although I don't think I would be like that if
not
it was
not something serious like
real
this.
Thing like that.
After another vote, Jurors 12 and 1 also change sides, leaving only 3 guilty votes. Juror 10, played by, that was Ed Begley, I think, goes on a bigoted rant, causing Juror 4 to forbid him to speak for the remainder of the deliberation. When Juror 4 is pressed as to why he still maintains a guilty vote, he declares that the woman who saw the killing from across the street stands as solid evidence. Juror 12, convinced, reverts back to a guilty vote. That guy was so annoying. He was like the businessman.
Yeah.
After watching Juror 4 remove his glasses and rub the impressions they made on his nose, Juror 9 realizes that the first witness was constantly rubbing similar impressions on her own nose, indicating that she also was a habitual glasses wearer. He observes she also always dressed up in clothes befitting a younger woman, hence not wearing the glasses in court. I was laughing at that part.
That is
so
1950s.
Juror 8 remarks that the witness, who was trying to sleep when she saw the killing, would not have had glasses on or the time to put them on, making her story questionable. Jurors 12, 10, and 4 all change their vote, leaving Juror 3, again Lee J. Cobb's character, as the sole dissenter. He vehemently and desperately tries to convince the others until he finally reveals that his strained relationship with his own son makes him wish the defendant guilty. He breaks down in tears and changes his vote to not guilty. As the others leave, Juror 8 graciously helps Juror 3 with his coat. The defendant is acquitted off-screen, and the jurors leave the courthouse. Jurors 8 and 9 stop to learn each other's names, Davis and McCardle, before parting. 12 Angry Men.
Ooh, I loved this movie.
Yeah, it was great.
I thought it was so good. Did you like it more than the first time you saw it?
Less? The first time I saw it, I didn't know what movies were,
Now you're like...
I know what movies are now.
You're like intense.
I've done 58. This is our 59th movie we've covered on this podcast.
Yeah, but
60th,
you watch a lot of movies now. Like, I'm kind of mad about it because I was the movie person.
Yeah, guess what? You ain't.
Yeah, that's sad. But I was a movie person for longer. Does that mean anything?
Nothing means anything.
I guess not. Guess not. All right. So your dad always used to say that...
Where is this headed? I know he's going to be listening. He'll probably listen to this one.
Your dad always used to say that he thought you were going to be what?
An actor or a lawyer?
An actor or a lawyer. If you pursued acting, which you never did.
I didn't.
Did he say that to you when you were younger?
Yeah.
Oh.
Both of those things.
And you just were like, no?
What?
To the actors?
I was like, no to the lawyer. Until later on.
So maybe you will become an actor.
Maybe.
Have you ever wanted to act?
I'll be juror number 9.
Have you ever wanted to act?
No.
No?
Always been more writer.
Behind the scenes person?
Yeah.
I love acting. I only did it once.
I don't know if
it.
I have the chops to be an actor. An actor.
Okay.
But yeah, you do. You could be an actress.
I don't think so. Actually, who knows? I was an actor, so why not? If you were, which juror You're in a production of 12 Angry Men at the local theater. Which juror would you want to play?
Which juror would I think, you know who I would actually think I would work as? Juror 4, the guy with the glasses.
Uh-huh.
Who's just like stoic, and he's the one of the holdouts that I don't think has bad intentions.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Because obviously the one guy is super racist. And I don't know if I mentioned this. The defendant is like ambiguously ethnic. Like he's not European white.
Right.
But you don't know what his race is, but it's assumed that he is some other race other than white, and that's why the racist stuff comes up and all that. But I think that guy is somebody who scrutinizes the case.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you what.
Yeah,
I think this guy was guilty.
it's kind of awkward.
Yeah. I don't think that's necessarily a hot take because I looked up some legal analyses after the movie.
And
but
it's like, no, he probably should have been convicted.
From a lawyer's perspective, I thought this guy was guilty.
All right, so you would have been 4. Do you know who I would want to play?
The baseball guy?
No.
No.
I would want to be the guy who's like, I grew up in the slums.
Oh, yeah, that guy. Because it was the racist guy, or it was Lee J. Cobb's character, who was talking about how, everybody from the slums is...
My guess it's the racist one. The Ed Begley Jr. guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Ed Begley Sr.
Ed Begley Sr.
Yeah.
And there's a guy who is basically saying, I am from the slums. Slums is such an outdated term.
I know.
But,
I think it was number 5.
Okay.
Jack Klugman.
It was definitely one of the guys on that side of the table.
I think it was Klugman.
And they they got into an argument, and a lot of the movie deals with sort of classism too. So I think it's a interesting.
I just think that he's a fun character to play.
Yeah, he had a good monologue.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I want. I want the monologue.
Well, what about the monologue that
the racist guy? I don't want that.
No. That Lee J. Cobb had when
he's an icon.
I wrote for best scene and quote. I just wrote the monologue about how he calling his father sir.
Yeah.
And how
kids these days don't have that respect.
And how kids are nowadays.
And I haven't talked to my son in 2 years.
Yes. I love that. I love that whole bit.
But that's huge because that
comes back
later, and that's why what makes him finally break down, but also is what was that blocker for him where you're like, the whole time you're like, all right, why aren't you switching your vote?
It's like, you're stubborn. You're just so stubborn, but why are you so stubborn?
But like, honestly, the movie's kind of awk because I'm like, I don't know.
About him being guilty?
Yeah, I don't think juror number 8 should have done all that.
Juror number 8, I think, went a bit too far. It was a little bit of overreach here.
Like, it really makes you... I understand that it's supposed to be like...
It's not really about the case. It's about the characters, and it's about...
But it's also about
collective action.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's also like, okay, the American justice system and how we really need to all make sure we give it the full chance.
And how people will go into it and just want to get to the game. And
other people will have previous biases. And
other people will want to maybe say something, but won't until somebody else speaks up.
Uh-huh. But... with this particular case, I don't know if this is the right one.
Okay. I don't know if he did it or if he didn't do it, but I think the evidence was strong enough to convict him.
There's no other theory that was presented.
Yeah. There doesn't have to be, though.
The other theory, I do understand that. But like the defense was that the switchblade that was the murder weapon.
The exact same switchblade.
Fell out of his pocket,
and also it was bought like 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
Also, first of all, juror number 8.
He
went to the crime scene.
Yeah.
He went to the store. He bought a switchblade. He slams it on the table. This guy, he would have gotten disqualified from the jury immediately.
Like, oh, my guy, like, what are you doing? And he's like, yeah, I'm an architect.
Yeah. Exactly.
Do you know who else was an architect?
Who?
The Long Island serial killer who just got caught.
Okay, all right then.
I'm just saying.
Great.
He was probably going around crime scenes too. All I'm going to say about that.
I would bet.
What are some of your favorite courtroom movies? Would you consider this a favorite?
Oh, absolutely.
Me too.
This is one that it's like the prototype of a courtroom movie. I'm sure that there were some before, but this is the one where if you're talking about courtroom classics, it's this, and it's like To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, also alleged serial killer.
Okay.
He's just arrested now,
Yeah.
so I don't know. Yeah, To Kill a Mockingbird is so good. Gregory Peck is like the perfect Atticus Finch.
He
It's
is.
like insane. Yeah, I would say those two, and I would also say My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah. We just watched A Few Good
A
Men
Few Good
recently.
Men. You can't handle the truth.
So I read something that was
I like it.
I read
like
something that was
movie.
comparing this movie and A Few Good Men
Yeah.
and sort of the moral complexity of this one as compared to the good versus evil of A Few Good Men.
Yeah.
And it's I forget where it was or what I was reading, but the article basically says that like there's room for both.
Oh, of course.
One is just a story it's like a crowd pleaser
Fun
courtroom story, and this one is asking legitimate questions, and it's wants to make you think and wants to make you say, hey, maybe this guy is guilty, you know?
Yeah, and the other one's making you say, hey, is Tom Cruise okay?
Hey. The other one's saying, hey, can I handle the truth?
And the answer is no.
Nicholson is great in that.
He's so good at that. Kevin Bacon's secretly good in it.
Yeah, he
Do you
is.
know who's not good?
I thought Demi Moore was fine.
I don't think so, man. I really don't. I really don't think she was that good.
You're such a hater.
I'm a little bit of a hater, I gotta say. Okay. What's your favorite Demi Moore role?
I gotta think. There's so many.
Yeah, exactly. She's good in Ghost-ish. Like, Whoopi Goldberg is so much better.
Okay.
And
Swayze?
Patrick Swayze is so much better.
I haven't seen any other. I think that's the only movie of hers I've ever seen. She's supposed to be great in Indecent Proposal. Just saying.
Okay. We'll
Haven't
watch
seen
that eventually.
Yeah, it's up our alley. It's Adrian Lyne.
Oh, I love it. I love that stuff. Any other favorite courtroom movies that you can think of? We haven't seen a lot of those.
Well,
Aaron Brockovich.
Just Mercy.
Oh yeah,
That was the
both of those are good.
yeah
Just Mercy was a fun kind of throwback movie.
yeah with Michael B. Jordan. I was just talking about this movie the other day at work actually because nobody had seen it, and I was like, oh, it came out a few years ago. It's a good one.
Yeah, it is good. Was Brie Larson in that?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I think. What about Trial of Chicago 7 was fun.
That was good.
I-
Another Aaron Sorkin.
I gotta rewatch that at some point just
'Cause
because
Jeremy Strong.
I'm now a Jeremy Strong head.
Oh my god.
Yeah, those are the ones that come to mind. But My Cousin Vinny, of course, is an
That's
excellent
the big
one.
one.
That was like, I feel like that's one of people's favorite Oscar moments when
Marissa
Marissa Tomei won.
Do you think she really won, or do you think that they read it wrong and then were too embarrassed to say that she didn't win?
Well,
That's like a theory.
I don't. No. Marissa Tomei won
She deserved it.
because I don't have any other answer.
Her, that monologue of her on the stand, that is like my ideal role.
There you go. There's your acting role right there.
There's a lot of reasons why I could not play that role.
I could do the Pesci.
All right. So obviously this was a big high school movie. What are some of your other favorite played in high school movies?
So, okay. So I actually took 2 classes where were like sort of film related in high school.
Yeah. Do you want to say that, or do you want to push that aside and just think of
Well,
classic?
Well, there's Shrek. There's Finding Nemo.
Remember the Titans.
There's Remember the Titans. Oh, I saw Remember the Titans like 5 times.
Yeah. I watched Black Hawk Down in physics class.
I didn't watch Black Hawk Down. Why? Because like the helicopter crashed? Is that?
Physics in it.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
My big 3 I remember. We watched I think Coach Carter.
Oh yeah, Coach Carter. What about Freedom Writers?
No, I don't think we did, but I know that that's one of those movies.
Yeah, that.
I actually watched good movies in the other class.
I watched good
other
movies in my
classes.
journalism class.
Mine were took a Greek myth class and I took a mysteries and literature class,
That's cool.
and we would watch some adaptations of those movies or of those like books.
My journalism class was just like we watch movies that happen to have characters that were journalists.
So you would watch like
Roman Holiday.
You would watch like Sharp Objects, technically,
yeah,
like something
right,
like
exactly.
that.
Well, we didn't, but yeah,
Of course not, because it was too recent. But
too cool.
yeah,
We watched like It Happened One Night. We watched Roman Holiday, like stuff like that, where it's just like the characters were just like, oh, they're reporters.
yeah. So mysteries and literature, we watched the Hound of the Baskervilles, which is a Sherlock Holmes story. We watched Murders in the Rue Morgue, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We watched Maltese Falcon.
Mm-hmm.
We watched Double Indemnity, which are major classics. And then in mythology, the movies weren't quite as good. but we watched like Clash of the Titans, like the 80s one, the cheesy 80s one where it's like, release the Kraken. Yeah. Well, I'm all about that type of stuff.
Why not? How about in 5th grade?
We watched like Jason and the Argonauts.
Okay.
Or something like that from the 80s.
Sure. I had to get a parental guidance slip signed in 5th grade so we could watch parts of Gladiator.
What parts?
The Gladiator.
Oh my god. Well, okay, so it's funny that you brought up before going to class
and my parents are like, sure.
And like having movies spoiled for you.
Yeah.
So Sidney Lumet did the movie Serpico.
Yeah.
With Al Pacino where he plays like an undercover cop.
Wait.
Wait. In my class in college, I think it was my policing class because I have a criminology degree, and he just showed us the end of Serpico. Like, we didn't watch the movie. He just showed us the end, and it was good. It was good. Yeah. I think it's like a classic ending, and the movie seems like it's good, but I haven't seen it all the way through. But it's funny because this is another Sidney Lumet movie.
Yeah. We watched Gattaca in 6th grade.
Do you know what I know Gattaca from?
Science class. Is it because there's like a show
there's an episode
where he's supposed to say Attica, but he says Gattaca?
There's an episode of The League, and they're paintballing, and Jason Mantzoukas' character Rafi is
How do I know that?
Because I probably said it to you before.
Gattaca!
Runs screaming like into the battlefield, yelling Gattaca.
Okay, Gattaca.
But I've never seen Gattaca.
Gattaca's actually a good movie.
I believe it.
It's kind of like
you're
like
the podcast.
You're like, oh, it's not going to be good. It's good. They had to fast forward through one scene.
Okay. Understood.
We watched obviously the Romeo and Juliet.
That's exactly what I was thinking of too when you said that.
We watched.
That you had to fast forward.
Yeah, we watched the old version. Yeah.
Yeah. We watched the DiCaprio version.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
You still have to fast forward through that one too. We watched all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Like all kinds of stuff that now I'm like, my history teacher, like my favorite history teacher, he once just played a Bruce Springsteen concert for us. Like, no.
That's New Jersey schools, baby.
New Jersey schools we watched. Yeah. Oh, and then he also did, it was Jeremiah Johnson.
Sure.
He was like a frontiersman hunter guy, and there was a movie with like Robert Redford or somebody's in it, and he got so, again, my favorite history teacher, he's the best. He got so mad at us that he stopped the movie.
Because you weren't into it?
Because
talking?
Yeah, because people were talking. I was into it. But I sat in the front and got all hundreds. Not really, but like all 93s or whatever. And so then he stopped and I was like, no. So I didn't get to see the end of that.
Okay. Maybe one day.
I think that's it. We watched so many movies. But never this one. Like an actual good movie. Okay. Would you go see a play version of this movie?
Absolutely. Why not?
You have seen a play version of a Sidney Lumet movie.
Network.
That's right.
With Bryan Cranston.
We saw it with Bryan Cranston.
He was awesome.
Tony Goldwyn and Tatiana Maslany.
Yeah.
She-Hulk herself.
She-Hulk herself.
Yep.
And star of Oppenheimer, Tony Goldwyn.
That's right.
One of like 8 billion people in Oppenheimer.
I forgot he was in that already.
No, I
just sat back and relaxed in that movie.
Well, the thing with this movie is that it's 1957. Women literally weren't allowed on juries yet in New York.
When were women allowed on juries?
I think it was, in New York, it was like 1975. There was a Civil Rights Act. I think it was Civil Rights Act, maybe 1964. There was one of like one of the titles of the Civil Rights Act, I think, brought it in like the 60s.
Silver lining, at least women didn't have to do jury duty.
Right, exactly. Now I'm saying that if you redo 12 Angry Men, it looks different now. Of
course. Would you ever
Unless you said it in 1957.
Lawyer question. Would you ever have a jury of all men nowadays?
I have never participated really in jury selection, so I don't really know. But I would assume probably not.
Yeah.
You wouldn't really want it. It just wouldn't really make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's interesting. What if you have like a population, like a high male population?
I mean, it's the idea is that you want the jury to be reflective of the local of the population. So I don't know.
Okay.
But
interesting. I would go see a play version of this actually in a heartbeat, especially
Absolutely.
If it was like a Broadway version where they had like all these famous people.
Well, I think that part of the charm of this movie is that it's breaking down a lot of masculinity traits across the board, and I think that there's room for another story to be told.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's 12 Angry Men doesn't have to be 12 Angry Men. It can be any type of murder case. You know what I mean? It doesn't to me, if you're even if you're remaking 12 Angry Men, it doesn't have to be the same story.
But it also could be.
Sure.
Like, that's fine too.
But a lot of it is like being a bad dad and things like that. So I felt that this movie was a strong critique of aspects of masculinity too.
Yeah, definitely.
That would be different, obviously, if it's not all men.
Take that, Barbie haters.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of Barbie haters, I bet, love 12 Angry Men.
Yeah, well, that's because they don't understand Barbie.
And also because there's no women in the cast.
And also because they probably don't understand 12 Angry Men.
Yes.
Now that I'm thinking about it, do you think there'd be anybody that would be like a standout person that if you saw they were in it, you'd be like, ooh, I want to go see it?
It's cheap to say this, but Bryan Cranston. If Bryan Cranston was juror number 8.
Oh,
Bryan Cranston was number 3.
I was going to say, if Bryan Cranston was number 8 and Robert Downey Jr. was number 3.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Oh my God. What if Denzel Washington was juror number 8?
Denzel Washington, I think, could have been any of them.
He could have been any and all of them. Just 8
Yeah.
or 12 Denzel Washington.
Yeah. Oh, that would be... How annoying would it be if you were the one juror and there was 11 Denzels in the room? How annoying would that be?
That would be awesome. Yeah, that would be actually...
You're saying that to me? And that's like all of it just cross-talking the whole time.
And then the other one's just Kate Blanchett.
Yeah. Always. That's like our new meme. Kate Blanchett.
What are the best movies where it's too hot or too cold?
Too cold, The Thing.
Yeah.
It takes place in Antarctica. Everybody's dying. There's a monster that takes the shape of humans that you don't know what it looks like because it's a shapeshifter. Like I said, it's Antarctica. It's in the middle of nowhere. That's cold.
Do you know what also is too cold? The Shining.
The Shining's too cold, especially at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hot. I mean, Do the Right Thing, which we've talked all about it.
Yeah.
We covered Do the Right Thing.
Yeah.
So that one immediately came to mind.
Yeah. That's good. I don't know what else.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I mean, I never saw The Day After Tomorrow. That was a movie we watched in school, but I didn't pay attention to it.
I think I watched that in school.
You know what movie we watched in school, in middle school, that is like in my top 10 of all time? Princess Bride.
I did not watch that in school.
We watched it in like an assembly for some reason in middle school.
Just because like one of the teachers loved it, probably.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, we'll just do Princess Bride."
It's the best. I love that movie so much.
Okay. What are your questions?
Would you be swayed by juror number 8?
Yeah.
If you were not guilty, if you were a team not guilty,
definitely.
Would you be one of the earlier ones who was swayed by him, or would you be like, okay, it's 6-6 now, time for me to go over?
No, I'd be early. Like anyone makes even a slightly compelling point, and I'm swayed. Like, wow. Like I still, like at first, I'm so easily swayed. Like, and the movie does such a nice job of it because, like, at the beginning, juror number 8's a little bit annoying with it, where you're just like, "Come on, dude,
like, let it go,
let it go." And then immediately,
you've got nothing.
Immediately, you're like, "Wait a second."
Wait, this old guy trusts him? I think I'm in on this.
Yeah,
I think I'm in on this.
And that I'm sure is done so purposefully, and it's so good.
Well, because the old man is one of the sort of demographics that's left behind in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the few that is not. I think I have this in my trivia. It's more like analysis than trivia, but he's one of the few people that isn't identified by his job. You know,
like all he talks about is how like everyone's a nobody in this trial. He's like the old guy. No one's ever listened to him, and now it's his moment. And that lady, she wants to be pretty, and
yeah,
like, all right,
yeah, dude, chill out.
So yeah, I'd be like a quick switcher.
Yeah, well, especially like once that racist guy started saying racist stuff, I'd be like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going the other way with this.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Where does this rank like in the Lumet movies you've seen? So you've seen this one, Dog Day Afternoon Network. You didn't see Serpico, right?
No.
So would you put this on the same level as those? Would you put it above some of them?
I'd put it on the same level. I think his movies are amazing.
I think those like 3 movies. I haven't
obviously
I've only seen the ending of Serpico, but the other 3 movies I think are like god tier.
Yeah, I can't even rank them, I don't think.
I don't think so either.
Like, I can't. They're all so good, and they're all very different genres, very different stories. What I really...
Ebert mentions that about Lumet.
Really?
Yeah.
What I like... It's the Rob Reiner in him. What can I say?
Yeah, no, seriously. He's more prolific and has more hits than Rob Reiner did, but...
what I like about those movies, too, is they're all based in, like... real events or whatever, like
exactly what Ebert says too.
See, me and Ebert. Like Dog Day Afternoon is literally based on a true story. Network based on a true. awful story of Christine something who was an anchor.
Yeah.
And I mean, 12 or could be any.
Yeah.
Any story in America in a courtroom.
Well, the writer who wrote it, Reginald Rose.
Yeah,
it was
Reggie
based
Rose.
off a jury duty experience.
There you go. So I really like that about his movies that I've seen is that they do feel so based in reality. And what I also like about his movies is they just cover humanistic rage so well.
Yeah. There's rage in all three of those movies.
Yeah, and they're very loud outbursts.
Well, I'll tell you,
it all comes to a head, and it's like that it feels kind of inevitable. It's always, they feel like pressure cooker movies.
It's funny you say that because
Ebert said it too. No.
one of the big things about this movie that I saw everywhere I looked about this movie was the camera techniques trying to do exactly
Make
that.
it like claustrophobic
Yeah,
as it's moving in.
I'll get more into that later on, but
yeah, Lumet is like, yeah, I love him.
I also watched another one of his movies today, which I told you about, called Running on Empty, and it's from 87 or 88, so one of his later outputs. And it's Judd Hirsch, and I forget the actress who played the wife, but she was great.
Martha Plimpton's in it.
Martha Plimpton is River Phoenix's girlfriend.
Wait, River Phoenix is in it?
I said this to you 3 times.
I love River Phoenix.
So he's so Judd Hirsch and his wife in the early 70s were anti-Vietnam War radicals, and they blew up a napalm plant and almost killed somebody who was a janitor that wasn't supposed to be there. And so they've been on the run for 16, 17 years, and they have these 2 kids. Their older kid is River Phoenix, and he was 2 when they started going on the run, and they just go from town to town, and they, he goes to school for a little while, and then they leave when, things get too hot, and they get close to being found out. And so the movie is, again, 17 years later, and it's about River Phoenix sort of finding his way and being in a town that he really likes, and he meets Martha Plimpton, who he starts dating, and he has bigger ideals. He wants to go to college. He wants to go to Juilliard. He has a tryout with Juilliard. He's a good piano player, and it's the whole tension is, where does it end? How can he get out? How does he get out of this? And it's something that is not his fault at all. Mm-hmm. He didn't ask for, and it's a really interesting moral complex, because even from the dad's end, like, how do you let him go? How do you get him out to do something on his own? And because he can't go to Juilliard because he doesn't have any records, because they just go from place to place and there's no record of them anywhere. They have different names, they have different addresses, they have different everything every 2 years or whatever it is. So I just love that concept, and it was a really good movie. It was a little 80s melodrama, but I don't know. River Phoenix is great. Judd Hirsch is great. And the mom was great. And it's another Lumet hit. I wouldn't necessarily put it quite on the level of the others. It doesn't have like that transcendent moment to it, but the last third of the movie is amazing.
I feel like Lumet was just a couple, luckily, it was a few years later, or else he would have been a McCarthy target with some of the content and views in his movies.
Yeah, maybe.
I love him. He's the best director. He's so good.
He's great. What's your favorite part about this movie?
Good question.
I said that I like that they never revel anyone's name until the end.
Yeah, that is fun.
2.
That's really fun.
Because it could be anybody. These are all sort of archetypal characters. None of them are, you've met or you've seen a lot of people that are like all of these characters.
Mm-hmm. What I really like about this movie is that I just appreciate how the screenplay was so compelling that you don't even realize you're watching one room for 93 minutes.
Yeah. A big part of that too is he was moving the camera a lot.
Yeah.
So that it seemed like things were going on, because he was like, in a jury room, they sit there and they talk. People aren't moving. So for the most part, they are a little bit, but for the most part, they're seated, so you got to move the camera around a lot. And then there's a scene with the racist monologue where everybody gets up and just looks away. Mm-hmm. So when they do move, it's purposeful, I
think also they do a really nice job of telling you what the case was and the evidence without it being too
movie-y.
Exactly.
It comes up in a natural conversation.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what about this? And then they'll talk about it 10 minutes later.
I really, really like that. And that's something that I think doesn't happen often in movies. I think sometimes you get hit over the head with stuff like what it would do. It would be like a flashback to the courtroom where they would lay out, or
Right.
they would have like imagined scenes of the son doing
Like on
it.
like ID.
Right, that
television.
reenactments
Yeah.
of what it's in their heads have happened, and that none of that was the case, and I really liked that.
That'll work sometimes, like in the after party.
That well, that's a very different
Absolutely.
thing. I also love that there were no women.
That sounded sarcastic.
Maybe a little sarcastic, but I understand it's the 50s, so
And it's one room in the 50s.
and it's one room in the 50s. I understand.
Who are your top 3 most interesting jurors? I would just say people that you thought were compelling characters. I thought most of them were.
Number 8, definitely the Henry Fonda role.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
For
we haven't
sure.
really talked too much about him because he's like kind of the obvious, but
Yeah.
he had a great performance.
Juror number 3, Obs.
Yeah. I think juror number 8. Or I mean, juror
said
number
8.
juror number 8, juror number 3, and he's not probably in my top 3, but I kind of love the businessman who just flip flops back and forth
He's good.
because he's a guy. He says so much, but he says nothing at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a nothing. He has no backbone. He has just,
Yeah.
I love that commentary.
The old man, he's funny.
The old man is like, to me,
Because he's like this wise.
he's such a movie character.
Yeah. I think they all were interesting.
Well, I kind of like 4 for the reasons that I said before, because he's very stoic, but he's legit, and he's just trying to be analytical and trying to figure out what the right call is without leaning into the racism or the guy, juror number 3 flying off the handle all the time. I thought that he was a different way of showing how someone it can get broken down from, the sort of collective action that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
He literally just wanted the truth. There was nothing there that was blocking him.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was an interesting way of going about it. Because in a movie, you can have your juror number 10, your juror number 8, or juror number 3, where they're just, sort of bombastic and all that. And this guy was the total opposite of that.
Yeah. It was good. Good movie.
That's all my questions. I have only a couple of notes.
I just watched. I didn't write a single thing down.
I wrote 3 things. The shuffling and small talk in the beginning before they start talking about the case is so tense because they're waiting for the old guy to get back from the bathroom, and they're all just making like little small talk, and all you hear in the sound design is just like shuffling feet,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so anxious. It makes you feel so anxious. I wrote, they're talking so nonchalantly about murder and it being boring as if it were. The guy said it was like, oh, thank God we got a murder and it's not a assault or a robbery or something like that, which is like what happens, I think, in courtrooms sometimes. Because if you think about a courtroom, like, people don't want to go to jury duty. It's boring,
Mm-hmm.
But these are real crimes that have happened to real victims,
Mm-hmm.
allegedly, until they're convicted,
Mm-hmm.
So, and then my last note was, when it gets to 6-6, juror number 7 makes a joke about it going into extra innings. And if I was in that room, I would have stood up and I would have screamed at him. I would have said, enough baseball. Enough. Stop with the baseball.
I loved it. In real life, I would be like, no more.
Yeah. All right.
You're also banned from talking.
They put him on the little desk like they did the racist guy.
No more.
All right, Tom's top 5 trivia. Juror number 7, that guy, claims he made $27,000 last year selling marmalade. That's not bad, he says.
Back then, I feel like that's pretty good.
That amount will be over $264,000 in 2023.
Paddington would be proud.
Oh man, you could sell $265,000 just to Paddington.
That's it.
Juror number 1, the foreman, is the only one who never explains why he considers the defendant guilty. Or
I like him
not
too.
guilty. Yeah,
He's
actually,
interesting.
there's a very interesting psychological metaphor on the meta level of this film, and of course, particularly concerning this character. Like a foreman, he leads and is not asked why he does what he does and how he does it. One simply assumes that he knows what he's doing. Later on, when he changes his mind, he still doesn't explain his decision, although from then on, he does not lead anymore but follows Juror 8. This is expressed via facial expression when he raises his hand to conclude that he now considers the defendant not guilty. So, in case you don't know, foreman is just a guy on the jury who is tasked with basically being the jury's representative.
Do you get to choose?
I think so. I don't think it has to be like juror number 1,
Mm-hmm.
But again, I haven't really been involved much with jury selection. The movie makes an accurate portrait of the classism existent in those times, and honestly still. While the most part of the jury reveal their work as part of their life and personality, in order from 1 to 12, assistant high school football coach, bank clerk, courier business, stockbroker, house painter, salesman, architect, garage owner, watchmaker, and advertising executive. Jurors 5 and 9 are omitted, since Juror 5 comes from a lower-class neighborhood and Juror 9 is an aging man, implying that he is retired and therefore his work and past life don't matter. So it's sort of showing that these people who are more, I don't necessarily want to say affluent because a lot of them are working class, but are really discriminatory towards those that are not.
Mm-hmm. It's just funny because like an assistant high school football coach position at school is like you get like $1,000.
But at the same time, like football coaches are just seen as something that is more,
of course.
You know. Lumet was only the third person to get a Best Director nomination for his debut film. Orson Welles, of course.
I was going to say Orson Welles,
was nominated for Citizen Kane. And Delbert Mann won for Marty, which was
1944,
which was the first, I believe it was the first or one of the first TV teleplays that were turned into a movie.
Oh wow, was that 1944?
Something like that. But it laid the groundwork for 12 Angry Men to follow that same path.
That's pretty cool.
I don't know why it says about. 20 directors have since been Oscar nominated for their debuts, and 6 have won.
Wow.
And finally, this is what I was alluding to before. At the beginning of the film, the cameras are all positioned above eye level and mounted with wide-angle lenses to give the appearance of greater distance between the subjects. Lumet wrote, I shot the first third of the movie above eye level, shot the second third at eye level, and the last third from below eye level. In that way, towards the end, the ceiling began to appear. Not only were the walls closing in, the ceiling was as well. The sense of increasing claustrophobia did a lot to raise the tension of the last part of the movie. They also used different editing techniques to increase the tension. The movie begins with a lot of long, unbroken takes, often lasting a minute or more without cutting away. As conversation heats up, the cuts start coming faster and the average shot length gets shorter. Whether we consciously realize it or not, the quick editing increases our sense of tension and anxiety until at last things settle down and we can breathe again. I think I read something that like half of the total cuts in the movie are in the last 20 minutes, which is crazy. So that's a trivia section. It was kind of hard to find trivia for this movie, surprisingly.
The other one, Sonia Sotomayor.
Okay. So Sonia Sotomayor, obviously Justice Sotomayor, is a big fan of this movie, and she said that it sort of made her
propelled her into a career in law.
Yeah. So she said she was particularly inspired by Juror 11's monologue on his reverence for the justice system, and he was an immigrant, and so she's, obviously that's a inspiring concept. She told an audience of law students that as a lower court judge, she would sometimes instruct juries not to follow the film's example because most of the jurors' conclusions are based on speculation, not fact. She noted that events such as Juror 8 entering a similar knife into the proceeding, performing outside research into the case, and ultimately the jury as a whole making broad, wide-ranging assumptions far beyond the scope of reasonable doubt would not be allowed in a real-life jury situation and would in fact have yielded a mistrial. So she clearly has thought a lot about it, and I think that's cool that's what she said was sort of her inspiration for becoming this great Supreme Court justice.
Yeah. She went to Princeton?
Yeah.
So cool.
Yep.
She's from New York City, which is isn't that where 12 Angry Men takes place?
It's not confirmed, but the guy going to the Yankee game and they see the Woolworths building. Yeah. So I think it's just assumed that it's New York. What else we got? Oh, the Ebert review. Oh, I also just wrote this. Lumet died in 2011 in Manhattan. He was 86. But in a 1997 interview about how he wanted to go out, Lumet responded, I don't think about it. I'm not religious. Yeah. I do know that I don't want to take up any space. Burn me up and scatter my ashes over Katz's Deli.
King.
All right, Roger Ebert. It's on his list of great movies. His 100 great movies.
Gave it 4?
4 out of 4, of course. His couple little excerpts here are: the movie is not about solving the crime. It is about sending a young man to die. The movie is timely in view of recent revelations that many death row convictions are based on contaminated evidence. We're talking about someone's life here, the Fonda character says. We can't decide in 5 minutes. Suppose we're wrong. Which, yeah, that's the whole thing with the whole death penalty idea.
I agree.
The movie plays like a textbook for directors interested in how lens choices affect mood. By gradually lowering his camera, Lumet illustrates another principle of composition. A higher camera tends to dominate, a lower camera tends to be dominated. As the film begins, we look down on the characters, and the angle suggests they can be comprehended and mastered. By the end, they loom over us, and we feel overwhelmed by the force of their passion. Lumet uses close-ups rarely but effectively. One man in particular, juror number 8, the oldest man on the jury, is often seen in full frame.
The oldest man's 9.
Did I say 8? I meant 9, sorry. I wrote 9. Is often seen in full frame because he has a way of cutting to the crucial point and stating the obvious after it has eluded the others. For Sidney Lumet, born in 1924, 12 Angry Men was the beginning of a film career that has often sought controversial issues. Consider these titles from among his 43 films: The Pawnbroker, about the Holocaust; Fail Safe, Accidental Nuclear War; Serpico, Police Corruption; Dog Day Afternoon, Homosexuality; Network, The Decay of TV News; The Verdict, Alcoholism and Malpractice; Daniel, A Son Punished for the Sins of His Parents; Running on Empty, Radical Fugitives; and Critical Care, Healthcare. There are also comedies and a musical. If Lumet is not among the most famous of American directors, that is only because he ranges so widely he cannot be categorized. Few filmmakers have been so consistently respectful of the audience's intelligence.
Mm-hmm. That's another thing. I feel when I watch his movies, like I'm like, oh, I'm trusting you, the audience, to get this.
Yeah.
And to figure it out for yourself.
Sort of the irony of Network being you're watching it on a screen and it's about all the information that's fed to you through a screen.
It's good stuff.
You know? Yeah, so that's it, I think. That's all I got. I think that's trivia. We did the taglines already. Yeah, I think that's it. Does 12 Angry Men make Baby's first watch list?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one is a easy one. It's not really a discussion here. It's an open and shut case.
Yes.
Do you have any takeaways? I feel like this whole movie is a takeaway. I feel like everything that happens in this movie is a takeaway.
Yeah.
Except that he was freaking guilty.
We don't know that.
He was. There was enough evidence to convict.
This is what I would say. I will say, it's my takeaway is it's difficult to stand up for your beliefs and what you think is right. And sometimes when you do and you put yourself out there, that can make all the difference.
Yeah, and I think that's really what the movie's trying to get at, and how people can come together and think rationally about things and sort of get to the truth. And I do think the movie wants the truth to be that he's not guilty.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is the truth, but it's definitely sort of the movie believes in people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's okay to believe in people too.
I agree. I think that's a big thing. I think people are awesome.
Yeah. People are generally good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, yeah, that's 12 Angry Men. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Next week, we're going to finish up. We're getting close to the end of summer here. But we're going to go back to a little bit more of a lighter summer fare. We're going to do Point Break next week, which has 2 Baby's First Watch List faves, Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze. And they are a sort of... They're both members of a bank robbing gang that are also surfers, but I think that Keanu is like an undercover cop. It's I read that they got the idea for the Fast and the Furious from like sort of something like Point Break.
Catherine Bigelow directed, right?
Yeah, Catherine Bigelow directed. Yeah. So we're gonna watch that next week. It's from the late 80s.
I'm kind of in.
I'm pumped for it. I can't wait. They robbed the banks in like president masks and everything. You've seen that, right?
Yeah.
It's like a popular thing that's referenced. Yeah, so this was 12 Angry Men, and we will see you next week for Point Break.
Goodbye.
See you later.
Case closed.